Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home. Into the wild I'll go, and into the wild I am. It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Welcome to the Freebirth Society podcast. This is a radical space for women who are ready to celebrate their autonomous choices in birth, motherhood, and beyond. Together, we'll learn about wild birth through personal narrative, we'll explore the politics of birth, and we'll analyze everything that relates to our lives as women from a feminist perspective. Here's your host, Emily Saldea.
It's been a while, freedom child, since I left my roots back home.
Is birth work your calling? Do you long to witness and support the awesome power of women as we make life, form kinship, and transform the world through undisturbed, mother-centered birth? In your most expansive vision of your life, are you the authentic midwife of your community? Walking in total grace, reciprocity, and trust with women through the sacred portal of pregnancy and birth? Then our groundbreaking Radical Birth Keeper School is for you. It's an immersive and intensive, fast-paced live program in all things authentic midwifery and self-mastery that will give you the blueprint and guidance to launch a life-altering, world-shaking radical birth brand and business. Think birth business mastermind, life-changing coaching intensive, deep dive into all things birth, step-by-step roadmap for serving women authentically, and the wise woman initiation that you have been dreaming of, all rolled into one epic program that will change your entire life. It is time to become the lighthouse that guides women home to themselves. Head over to radicalbirthkeeperschool.com and grab your spot, because we are enrolling now and we always sell out. Say yes to your calling and join us in this revolution of bringing birth back home. www.radicalbirthkeeperschool.com. On the show today, we have Alexandra, a solo parent by choice. After finding a sperm donor and just one round of IVF, Alexandra decided to opt out of the medical system entirely, despite a highly managed start to her conception and gestation journey. Alexandra shares her story of balancing surrender and control, staying true to her mothering choices, and transitioning into postpartum as a single mom. Just take us to wherever this feels like the beginning for you, and obviously learning that this is a solo parenting journey by choice. I mean, just take us to what brings you into that decision. I don't think I've had a woman like that has made that same choice on the podcast yet. So I'm really excited to hear about it, even though I know women who do that. So just take us wherever you want to start and start telling us about who you are.
Yeah, so I am a single mom by choice. So I did go through IVF to get pregnant. I would say that the beginning started, I would go back and forth. So I'm 32 now. Maybe when I was like 26, I kept saying like, I don't really want a partner to have kids. Like I just want kids. Like I want to do it on my own. And I don't really want to be attached to someone forever because we had kids. I never really saw any relationships that stayed forever. Mm-hmm. They never worked out forever. So it was like, well, why would I bring children into this situation? And inevitably they'll be in the two households, like mom this weekend, dad this weekend, whatever, you know what I mean? And so it was just like, well, why? They can have a steady household a peaceful home with just me. And then
Yeah.
that was the other thing. I don't really like to compromise. And so it's like, do I want to vaccinate? Do I not? Do I want to go to church? Do I not? Do I feel like, I don't know, one parent wants to, I don't know, be Christian and one wants to be, I don't know, any other religion. And
Yeah.
we have to argue over that. I don't want that to be a thing. So I'll say this is how I really solidified that I was going to go down this path. I work for like a really huge company. We have like huge like fulfillment centers or like warehouses that we work in. And I was like going back just in my head. I wasn't really like talking to people about it. And I was walking through our building one day, and the building's huge, like 800,000 square feet, huge.
Whoa.
So I'm walking through the building, and again, I'm just going back and forth like, okay, that means I need to use a sperm donor. I have no idea who this person is.
Right.
I wanted to use a known donor. So those people.
What do you mean when you say known?
A known donor is someone you actually know. So
like in real life.
Yes, in real life. And it can vary. So some people use known donors like your best friend that just wants to be helpful to you, an ex. Also, people find known donors on Facebook pages. And so there are Facebook groups for known donors, and they meet up, they exchange the sample, and then that's it.
So known implies outside of a bank.
Yes. So outside of a bank, because with like traditional cryobanks, there's a few different types of donors. So you can have an anonymous donor.
Right.
So you would most likely see childhood pictures of that donor. And then you can have an open ID donor. And I might get these mixed up, open ID and ID disclosure. So an open ID donor, I believe, is a donor who is willing to have the child reach out to the cryobank. The cryobank will then reach out to the donor when that child turns 18.
Wow.
And if they want to know each other, if they want to meet up, they can. An ID disclosure donor means that at 18, the child can reach out to the cryobank and all the information that the cryobank has. So that like the donor's current address, any information that the cryobank knows can be given to the child. And so I have an ID disclosure donor. I didn't want to take that opportunity away from them if they feel like they did want to know who that person is in the future. So so that's the difference between like a cryobank donor and then a known donor. And the other part of having a known donor is, especially if you do like natural insemination, which means you just have sex, that donor oftentimes can have parental rights, so they can change their mind. Yeah. And it kind of defeats the entire purpose of being single parent by choice. You pretty much say you can come back at any time and try to get parental rights. It's scary.
Oh my God.
Because I thought about using like an ex. Because you want to know, like, at the time, this was more important to me. Like, I know what he laughs at. I know what he thinks is funny. I know what foods he likes. You know what I mean? And then you're like, oh, you see it in your kid and you know, like, where they get it from. But then it became not as important to me. You know what I mean? And so that's why I went with a cryobank.
So you went with bank because that gave you the most control.
Yes.
And then you chose ID disclosure in case your child at 18 or beyond wants to explore a potential path of contact.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's really funny because so we're actually in contact with her donor siblings. We have a Facebook group. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's like a bunch of women that have kids by the same man. And she's like of the older group of kids. He donated, we got his sample and pretty much we all got pregnant last year in 2020.
So why was he so popular?
He was such a cute little kid.
So you only saw pictures of him as a child, or do you see pictures of him as an adult as well?
Well, so you're talking to an FBI agent. Not really, but I found him in real life.
Of course.
But I didn't find him until I was pregnant. So there was like no going back.
Okay. Interesting.
Yeah. So we have a Facebook group. I think there's like 5 of us right now.
Whoa.
Yeah. And so, like I said, she's like in the older group of kids, because I'm sure more will come later. And like I was concerned, like, because you're gonna get to know these kids. They're like your siblings, your half siblings. And if the 18-year-olds reach out to the donor and meet him,
Oh,
and then there's a 10-year-old,
right.
like, how does that work, you know?
Mm-hmm. Wow. Yeah, a whole different can of worms there.
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Well, I mean, and you're
Oh,
choosing to be involved with the group. Like you could
oh yeah.
opt out.
Just not, yeah. So actually there's a donor sibling registry on California Cryobank, which is the cryobank I used. And we registered our children's births. So you can log into that and
Mm-hmm.
see how many donor siblings there are. And so some people are in the Facebook group, but not registered on the sibling registry. Some
Gotcha.
people are in the sibling registry and not in the Facebook group. And so I know one for sure is in the sibling registry, but has not interacted with us at all on the Facebook group. So yeah,
And
people choose not
so
to join.
totally. So forgive my ignorance, but okay, so with the
Okay.
guy who donates his
hmm
sperm, does he like does he get does he just have like a ton of batches?
He has a few, I think they're called releases. Like they do he'll have a release in November or something
Oh
like
my
that. I
god.
think that's what it's called.
It's
Um,
so graphic. I mean, that's like a perfect name.
and there's like a bunch of vials. Yeah. So I'll tell
Wow.
you like mine. I
Yeah.
purchased 2 vials.
Okay.
I did IVF,
Wow, good
and from
odds.
right, and from my IVF. Okay, are you familiar with IVF at all?
Mhm. Yeah.
Okay, so from IVF, you can you'll get embryos, and then some people test their embryos for PGS testing. And so after PGS testing, I had 15 embryos. So
Whoa.
yeah, like
And where are those now?
frozen in Virginia
Okay.
Beach.
And are those yours? Like, do you
Yes.
own them? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. And you pay to
Um,
have them stored.
yes.
Okay. Woo,
And
this is
actually,
crazy.
and actually, my company has a benefit called Progeny, which I wish more companies had. It's so helpful. And they actually paid for a year of embryo storage, which at my clinic
Yeah.
is about $900. So, and it's not
Well,
bad
the
over a
the
whole year.
shadow side to that is because I'm familiar with companies like Facebook and other companies that also offer um egg freezing support. I don't know what it's really supposed to be, what like the correct term is, but I think kind of the shadow side to that also is the incentive to work
Yeah.
and just have babies later,
Oh, yeah.
which I guess I
hmm
mean women should decide to of course do
Because
whatever the
you'll
heck they want, but
preserve your fertility.
yeah, in
So you could do
theory.
this at
Yeah.
30 and then wait till
Whew.
35, 37, 38,
Wow.
you
Okay.
know?
Crazy. Okay. So you had so many successful embryos. I mean, that's like
Yes.
that's a lot.
Oh yeah. Like so at my clinic we kind of do our IVF cycle in batches. And so you don't really see anyone, and it was during COVID, so we were all like separated,
Hmm.
but you kind of knew like everyone was coming in for day 1, what is it? I can't even remember, like testing pretty much.
Hmm.
And the embryologist called me once the embryos got to day 5, and she's like, "You were my first call. I couldn't wait to call you. You had so many embryos." And I'm like, "Oh." And you just don't think about
You,
this side. I never thought about this side. I chose to be a single mom by choice. And then I said, I'll do IVF because I want my child to have siblings. And you kind of get like cycles in progeny. An IUI, which is an intrauterine insemination, where you pretty much put a vial of sperm in your vagina.
yeah. Why didn't you do that one?
Less control.
Okay.
So I kind of wanted to choose gender. I wanted to do testing, like chromosome testing, and I couldn't do that with an IUI. And then
Oh.
again, they're $900 to $1,000 per vial.
Hmm.
And so oftentimes you could do 4 IUIs before you get pregnant. So that's
Totally.
almost $4,000
So you
of
chose
just
the
sperm.
sex. You chose which embryo
Yes.
because the embryos are sexed.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. I haven't thought about this in a little while. Okay. So the embryos are sexed and you can do genetic testing on them prior to insemination.
Yes.
Wow. Okay. So you were like, I want a girl.
Yes.
And you had incredibly fertile odds.
Oh yeah.
Wow. And
And
okay, this is terrible, but I'm really thinking like, damn, I wonder if you and this guy like met, like you would be very fertile together. Like, have you had this thought?
so they say that, and like you hear all these, I don't know, wives' tales, whatever, in these fertility groups and
I'm
single mom
sure.
by
Yeah.
choice groups. And so they say the more genetically different you are, the higher your odds are of
Oh, okay.
like fertility or something like that.
Okay.
So if I would have chose like, I guess like a Black African American guy, I don't know, maybe the odds would have been lower, but I was eliminating certain things. And so he's biracial,
Okay.
but I was trying to eliminate like sickle cell trait, stuff like that. And that
Wow.
was, so had a cute picture at the top of the page. When you click on the profile, there will be like a link where it says sign form if the donor has some genetic disorder that you have to sign off acknowledging. And so the second thing I noticed was that he did not have that sign off thing. And so that was another thing. I didn't want a donor that I had to sign off on.
Of course.
So, right. So that was the second thing.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how I chose him. And I almost didn't get the vials. So I logged in one day, I think like maybe February, March last year. And I saw his profile. I saw that it was like no sign off. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I really need to get these vials. And it just said low vial count. Usually it says 30 vials, 26 vials. It just said low vial.
Everyone's after him.
Oh yeah. Well, just for all of the donors, it'll tell like the actual number, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And his just said low vials. So I'm like, okay. I called my mom. I'm like, this guy's really cute. I think that I want to get the vials. And she's like, well, go ahead and get it. I said, I think I'm going to hold off. Sorry, I called California Cryobank first. And the agent told me, they're so helpful. They're so nice. The agent told me, I think that you should put some on hold because they could be gone by tomorrow. Mm-hmm. So I said, okay, I'll put them on a 24-hour hold. It's a free hold. You just come back tomorrow and let us know whether, come back tomorrow and let us know whether you want them or not. Called my mom. She said, I think you should get them. Called back the next day because I'm like, I'm still going to think about it a little bit. And there were 8 vials when I called the previous day. When I called back, my 2 were the only ones still there.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Because he was in high demand.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, so it was a combination of, so I was walking through my building at work and I found a keychain that had a sperm and an egg on it.
You just stumbled upon this keychain of a sperm and an egg?
Yes. And it said cryobank on it, or like cryos or something like, yeah. So I'm like, this is my sign that like, this is what I should be doing in that 800,000 square foot building, you know?
Wow. I mean, what are the chances?
Right. And then the second side of my sign was, so I got pregnant in October of 2019, like by an ex. Yes, I had a miscarriage.
Okay. And
I was in denial. I'm like, it's a stealth pregnancy. I'm pregnant. I don't know. I'm not showing. And that lasted, it was like on and off. Like I believed it sometimes, I didn't believe it other times.
So how far along were you with that one?
Very early, like 6 weeks, 5 weeks, something like that. And so I think by January, I hadn't had a period for like 40, like no bleeding for over 40 days or something like that. So I went to the doctor. I was misdiagnosed with PCOS. And this leads into how I had so many embryos, misdiagnosed with PCOS. And that's what jump started me. Like, I need to get this going right now because I don't know what my fertility will look like, you know? So that's when I started looking into progeny through my job and started everything. Well, I go to the reproductive endocrinologist, my RE, and she's like, you don't have PCOS. Like your hormones are fine. You do have PCO though. And I'm like, well, what's PCO? She's like, polycystic ovaries. And that just means you have a lot of follicles. You create a lot of eggs. So yeah,
which is not a problem.
No.
Yeah. Okay. So you get pregnant with super ease. This is last year during COVID.
Yes.
2020.
So my transfer was in July.
So I am so excited to hear about how you start with this like hyper medical, hyper controlled story and then wind up in a freaking free birth. So tell us walk us through that arc.
Right. So when I was getting pregnant, I would often listen to anything about pregnancy, birth, single mom by choice podcast. And so I came across the podcast, and even before I got pregnant, I said I want to have a free birth. Why?
Yeah, why?
Um
It just seems so, it's very unusual for women who start that medical to
Yeah.
not wind up with a highly medicalized birth.
Oh yeah.
So this is definitely very, very, yeah, unique. So tell me.
So some things
about
that went into it. The Black maternal mortality rate. I did not want I didn't want a bunch of interventions. I didn't want a bunch of scare tactics, none of it. So it was just like,
I mean,
so
that's enough reason
oftentimes,
right there.
yeah, yeah, that's enough. Oftentimes IVF pregnancies or IVF babies have heart issues. So I pretty much stayed with an OB until I think around like 20-ish weeks. You get an ultrasound where you make sure like everything's okay with the heart. After that, I never went back. So
Wow.
they told me that I needed to come back to do my glucose test. And right there I asked, is there any alternative that I can do aside from that drink? I don't want to have the drink. And they're like, oh, well, only if you've had gastric bypass or any type of gastric surgery can you do any alternative. I said, okay, like no argument. I'm just not even going to get into it because at the end of the day, I can make my own decisions, you know?
I also love how illegal it really is. Like it's like completely against the oaths that doctors take to not name that the alternative is to just not do it.
Yeah, you don't have to do it.
You don't have to do it, but they're never going to say that. Ugh.
And so I'll say I teetered back and forth between like just completely like wild birth, free birth, and like, do I need to test my glucose, you know, or do I need certain things? And I'm really grateful I met up with a midwife who supports free birth in Virginia. She's in Charlottesville. And I'm like, can you please explain to me why it's always said that minorities most likely have gestational diabetes? And I'm glad that she was okay with saying they say minority because they really mean poor. Like that's what they mean. They mean you don't have access to the best food choices. And so you're already set up on a path towards diabetes. You know what I mean? And so I'm like, okay, well, I eat pretty healthy. So I'll test my glucose. If it even seems crazy slightly, then I'll pay more attention to it. But it was perfectly fine. I tested for like 4 days and it was perfectly fine. After that, like I said, I never went back to the doctor. And a part of what I didn't really like about them is like, I think there were like 8 delivering physicians, and they wanted me to see all of them during my pregnancy, which means I don't really know any of them. Like I'm seeing you one time because I go every 4 weeks. It just didn't seem like something I wanted to do. So I didn't say anything. I didn't register to give birth. And I did think in the back of my mind, okay, if you choose to go to the hospital, you're just going to make this process even worse because then you're going to have to do all the registration and all this stuff. But I'm like, I'm just going to be headstrong. I'm not going to do it. There should be nothing wrong. So,
and it's a fine line, I think, to walk for all of us who choose to birth outside of the system of like, how much on your radar do you want to get on their radar to, like you said, like maybe register or something versus nothing at all.
I honestly thought that they would reach out because I've heard stories that they would reach out telling me, hey, we haven't seen you in a while. Do you want to go ahead and schedule an appointment? Right.
Yeah.
They never reached out. Yeah. Like closer to the end of my pregnancy, I'm in a free birth group on Facebook. And so they kind of tell you like some of the supplies you need. Some people are very minimal and they don't get anything. I got like a birthing pool. I got some Chuck's pads. I think I wanted her to have like specific scissors to cut her umbilical cord that she could keep, like that were hers.
Oh, that's cute.
Yeah. So I got those things. And then I think that was pretty much it.
Who's going to be there?
My mom.
Nice.
And initially my mom was not really on board with a free birth. She had all of her births in the hospital. Yeah. But she did have all natural births. And so she kind of knew like what to expect as far as that goes. But she was curious, like, well, what about the vitamin K shot after she's born? What about the erythromycin that goes in the eyes, stuff like that? I was like, none of it is really necessary. So it doesn't matter. And so I told her, like, you really need to educate yourself. If you're going to be afraid, you can't be there, you know? And so she did. She educated herself. And I actually told her, she lives like 2 hours away. And I told her, I kind of want to give birth by myself. And she was just like, I don't think that's what you want. I'm like, no, I think that I kind of want to give birth by myself. And I'm like, I think that I might tell you closer to the end of labor. And then once you get there, maybe you'll walk in right after I deliver. But she did end up coming down and she was there for the entire birth. And even after the fact, I think that I would have been okay giving birth by myself.
Of course.
I think, and she even says, like, you were very like independent. I would try and help you and you didn't really want help. And I'm like, yeah, it didn't seem like crazy to me. You know what I mean? It seemed very doable. And so I started my maternity leave around like 36, 34 weeks, something like that. And I was just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and nothing was happening. And so I know some people are scared of castor oil, but I was like, I'm going to try. So I tried that, and it was like 9 or 10 o'clock at night. The next morning is when like contractions really started. And I was in labor for about 17 hours, and everything was like, I was documenting things. So like making like short clips and videos. And I'm assuming I had back labor. The only pain was like right in the middle of the small of my back. Like I didn't really feel anything in the front of my stomach, or like what people would describe like traditional contractions as. And so I wasn't sure that I was even in labor. I wasn't sure what it was. But I was just hoping like, okay, maybe this will die down. And it didn't really die down. It just kept going and kept going and kept going. And so I think around midnight is when it got to a point where it was just like uncontrollable pushing. So I labored all that day. Around midnight is when I knew I wanted fetal ejection reflex to kind of do its thing, just because I wanted to experience it. And I'm not really sure if that's what happened, you know, but around midnight, 12:30 is when it was just like uncontrollable.
Is your mom here yet?
Oh yeah, she's here.
She's already here. Okay.
Yeah. And I actually had to like kick her and my mom's dog. And I'm like, you guys have to go.
So are you just like completely fearless?
I didn't think anything was gonna happen. Anything bad was gonna happen. Yeah. It was just like, this is normal. We'll wait to see how it goes, and then I don't want to say fearless.
I'm so impressed because I say this with total like love and respect, but you obviously have a control freak side, you know, and like most of us do. And it's like a phenomenon that you also have so much confidence and like internal resourceness that you could also just let go and give birth. Like a lot of women who have the strong type A thing have a really hard time in labor because it requires so much freaking surrender. It's like the antithesis to control, right? So I'm just very impressed that you like were able to kind of juggle all of it.
Yeah. So it's really funny because like I said, I recorded a lot of it. And I remember like putting my, like feeling inside my vagina. And of course, I'm not getting cervical checks. I don't even know what 1 or 5 or whatever centimeters might feel like if I'm doing the check on my own. And I'm telling my mom, like, I don't know if it's open enough. Like, I don't know, like, and I'm like logically thinking, like, I don't know if it's open, like wide enough. I don't know. And I remember the midwife telling me, like, well, you can't really have like intellectual conversation if you kind of want the FER to kick in. Like, you kind of just need to be very primal and like let things happen on their own. And I'm like, well, I'm like analyzing all of this, so maybe I should just have them leave. And that's when that was. I was like, I think you guys should like just let me do this by myself. Like, I don't want to have to think about anything. And that's when I think after I let them back in, after probably like an hour, is
I love
when
that you're referring to them as them, the dog and the human.
yes, my mom and the dog, because I have pictures. The dog was like right next to me, right under me the entire time.
That's funny. So you noticed like a shift when they left where it was just like, yeah.
Yes. And things like I feel like started to move. And again, and my water had not broken yet. So everything was still like intact. I was even at like, I'll say maybe like 10 o'clock at night. So I gave birth at 12:53. Wow. Maybe like 10 o'clock at night. I'm still like, is this labor though? Like, are we sure? You know? And so
you're just built for this, girlfriend. It's awesome. You just got pregnant easy and yeah, it's beautiful.
So at like 12:53, like I said, I gave birth, and I did not want to tear. And so I'm like, I'm holding my perineum as I'm like letting the head come out. And my mom had looked to see, I'm like, does she have hair? And she's like, she has hair. I'm like, okay. So I'm like feeling down there. And eventually I'm just like, the head's out. And she's like, what? What do you mean? So she looks, she's like, the head's out. And I'm like, I know the head's out, you know? And I know that once the head comes out, like this is all stuff, again, like you said, education from Facebook, but this is like, the baby's supposed to like turn and then the whole body will come out. Mm-hmm. So I was unsure whether the entire head was out. I could feel like the smooth back of her head in the front, and then in the back, it just felt like a bunch of ripples.
Totally.
So I'm like, I don't know if any of these ripples is her chin, like saying her entire head is out. So I gave like a tiny little push, like to make sure everything was out, and her entire body came out. Mm-hmm. And her cord was wrapped around. So she had a nuchal cord, like a double wrap around her neck. And I just unwrapped it. And I think I was just like in complete shock. I couldn't even believe, like, it's over. Like, this is it. And I was just like so grateful. I know I just did not want to transfer to a hospital. And I never felt like it got to the point. Actually, that's a lie. I remember saying, just call 911. Take me in. They can give me a C-section.
Oh no.
And this was like right, like I think I was just like so scared. I could feel her head like right on the other side of my vagina. I'm like, I have no idea what this is about to feel like. This is what people are like screaming at in movies, and it's about to happen to me, you know?
And your mom was just like, okay, sweetie.
She was just like, Zan. Oh, so she calls me Zan. But she's like, at this point, they're going to make you deliver her anyway. Like, she's so far down. They're not going to give you a C-section. And that was like the only thing that like calmed me. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm too far.
You're in it to win it now.
Yeah. And I will say, pushing her out was not painful for me at all. The contractions were painful. And if you have one really intense contraction, I feel like it's very doable. I think the part that makes it like, okay, can this be over with, is the fact that it keeps coming and keeps coming and keeps coming, you know? Like,
17 hours of it.
It just doesn't stop. But the pushing was, I'll say I was very shocked.
Nice.
Yeah.
Cool. Beautiful. I'm blown away that you didn't like feel. So
I was waiting for the ring of fire.
Didn't have it. Sweet. That's awesome.
Not that I
And
noticed.
then did you tear it all?
So I saw like bright red drops of blood coming out, which I believed was a sign that I was tearing. I didn't have any pain in my vagina. So I don't think I tore. But then I
You
did
would
like
know.
a few weeks later. Okay, good. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I didn't have any tearing. And then like a few weeks later I did get like granulated tissue near my perineum, which again makes me think I might have torn, or maybe it was a stretch or something, but it was nothing like I expected it to be.
I mean, if you tore, it would burn when you peed.
No. And I was really scared of that. Like my first pee, I almost, and then your bladder holds like a normal amount of pee almost immediately. Well, at least mine did. It went from like 2 ounces to like a gallon of pee. And I was like running to the bathroom, trying to get the peri bottle together. I'm like, I can't do this. I can't touch warm water when I have to pee. I'm going to pee on myself. So I'm like running to the bathroom, so scared that it's going to burn. And then there was just no burning. And so
Amazing.
I'm like,
awesome. So what about the placenta? And what position are you birthing her in? I'm picturing you like on your knees?
yeah. So almost like when someone proposes, like they get down on one knee.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to be in the pool. I'll say that's how I let go. Like I was very like, I'm going to be in the pool. I'm going to give birth here. I'm going to do this. And it was just like, no. I'll even say I had to get out of the pool because the water got too cold.
Mm-hmm.
And then my mom wanted me like to like kind of relax and everything and get back in the pool. And I'm like, I don't really want to be in the pool. She warmed the water up. I didn't want to be in the pool because the pool was too cold. Sorry. So she warmed the water up, and then it was too hot and I got like really like lightheaded.
Oh.
So then I just got out, and that's when I was like in the kneeling position. And so I really wanted to encapsulate my placenta. So we kind of I let the umbilical cord stay on for maybe like 20 minutes. I think we were like 20 minutes, cut the cord, and I completely forgot about the placenta. I took a shower.
Wait, what?
I after I left it there in a bowl.
Oh, like you birthed it.
Yes.
I
Sorry.
thought you meant like you forgot about it inside of you. I was like, wait.
No, the placenta came out almost immediately also.
Okay. And it's in the bowl, cut.
Yes.
Now you're free. You go take a shower.
Yes. I go take a shower, and I forgot it like overnight out. And so I'm like, can't really encapsulate at this point, but yeah, the placenta came out easier and faster than I thought it would also. So
beautiful.
I think I was still in the kneeling position, like just like in awe. And I'm like, oh, the placenta's coming out, you know?
My gosh,
so
that's so awesome.
Yeah.
Cool, calm, and collected. That's you. You're 3 months postpartum?
Yes.
You said? Yeah. So how has this been? Solo parenting, your mom lives 2 hours away. So what does the next 12 weeks look like for you? How's your body? How's breastfeeding going? You're going to go back to work at some point, I assume. So
yes.
Yeah, what is all that like?
So I go back to work in August. But postpartum, I feel postpartum is intense. Like, of course your body doesn't look normal, but I feel like that stuff can come in, like you'll get back to normal eventually. And I wasn't really focused on that. I'll say breastfeeding was probably the most difficult thing for me. I felt like there was nerve pain in my neck when she would latch. And I would have scabs like covering my nipples.
No.
Yes, it was horrible for me. So, but eventually we moved past that. So I'm asking my mom, like, how long does this last? I contacted a lactation consultant. And again, so I did IVF, very medicalized, kind of like moved out of that to deliver, very like free birth. And then I felt like I gave birth and I moved back to that, like the medical side almost. And I was getting frustrated with myself because it was like, okay, contact a lactation consultant. And the lactation consultant said she needs a frenectomy. So then I went and got her a laser frenectomy. And she didn't need it. And so I was, yeah. So it, again, is still everything's very virtual still. And she's a new baby. So they're like, we'll just do it over, I think it was like Zoom or some type of like platform like this. And they had me like pull her lip down so they could see under her tongue. And I'm looking at it and there's nothing there to be cut. Like it's almost like smooth. And she's saying like, oh, well, that needs to be like nicked pretty much. She needs a frenectomy. And I'm looking in her mouth. I'm like, I don't see anything that can be cut. Like they would literally be cutting the bottom of her tongue.
Whoa.
And she's like, trust me, I know. She can't touch the roof of her mouth. And she's saying that it's shaped like a C. It's just bringing me back like almost. And she didn't need the frenectomy.
Ugh.
I don't know what would have made that transition into breastfeeding better, but I think it was probably like 2 weeks where it was just like excruciating pain. And I eventually took her to a pediatrician because that I feel like I did feel pressured to do. I reached out to a pediatrician when I was still pregnant because eventually I did want her to have something because again, it's like on the radar, not on the radar,
Yeah.
you know? And
Sure.
so I'm like,
Ugh.
we'll have periodic checkups. And so they were actually freaking out. It was 6 days and I still hadn't brought her in. And they were like, we need her in. I felt really pressured. But still that's when they were like, oh, well, did she get vitamin K? And I'm like,
Right.
no. And they're like, so do you want to do it now? I'm like, no.
At day 6? That doesn't even make any
No.
sense.
At that point, she's creating, or I think it's like day 8, they start like their own vitamin K, producing it on their own. I'm like, I can't take, and that's where I was saying, like, I'm going back and forth between this like very medical and very wild space. And they were telling me she's lost too much weight. She was 6 pounds, 11 ounces when she was born. I think she was 6 pounds, 4 ounces when I brought her in. And then they told me, you need to feed her every hour. You need to come in every day until she's back to birth weight. And I'm like, okay, like I don't want her to like be losing weight, you know? I get home and I'm like, no, I canceled the appointment. We're not coming in every day. We're not doing this. She's a newborn. She will eat when she's hungry. Her stomach is the size of like, I don't know, a walnut or something. You know what I mean? Like it's ridiculous.
Also,
And
a
it's the
stressed
scare
out,
tactic.
mom who's not resting, who's going to be under-resourced, like going in and out, who's doing this on her own, who is freaking freshly postpartum. That doesn't help your milk supply. Like that doesn't help your baby's nervous system. I mean, there's so
Right.
much to consider. Ugh. Okay. But so now you're through it and nursing's okay?
Yes. So we nursing is fine. And like, I feel like I won't say easy, but if I think about like creating bottles, I don't know. I never thought I would be so okay with just like whipping my nipple out in public. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I was actually I was out one day and a mom was making a bottle and I like just got in like a little corner, started nursing Sloan. And she's like, oh, I commend you, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, there's nothing else for her to eat. I don't have any bottles. I don't have any formula. I don't have anything. She's going to scream her head off or I'm going to pull my boob out and feed her. So, yeah.
Does the nursing still hurt?
Actually, it stopped hurting completely.
Good.
And then just recently, like in the last couple days even, I feel like it almost feels like there's just like a tug in like one spot in my nipple. And so I'm like, I don't know if it's a clog. I don't know what it is. You know what I mean? But other than that, it's nowhere near what it was then. Like it felt like nerve pain, like in here. And I was just like, this can't be normal.
Do you do breast massage?
No, I don't.
That might be something just while you're hanging out, you know, just when you're alone, just put a little, you know, oil on your breasts. Coconut oil, doesn't have to be anything like, you know, because the baby would probably wind up licking some of it.
Yeah.
But I wonder if just kind of, you know, just kind of like going around and just getting some good flow would help.
Yeah.
Help any funky. it's kind of the first move anyway. If you do suspect a clogged duct or anything kind of funky, is just make sure all your lymphatic system is flowing and open and hydrated. And wow. So you go back to work in August, and your mom's been around, it sounds like, to help.
Yes. So she stayed with me for the first 2 weeks, and then I'm like, I really want to get the hang of things on my own, since I'm going to be on my own majority of the time anyway. And so she went home, and that is when, I mean, it was never like shit hit the fan and it was just crazy. It was just like, I think the biggest things are I love to eat, and there's just no way to always
oh my God,
have like great food, which is what I always want. With a newborn, nursing, you just don't always have the time. Yeah, exactly. So, and then I'll say postpartum was much more difficult than I ever expected it to be.
Yeah.
I know people talk about it, and it's
We're
just
still,
like
everyone's blindsided by it. It doesn't matter how many times everyone's like, it's really hard, you guys. It's really hard.
Oh my gosh. It was just like crying at the drop of a dime.
Yeah.
And it's like, you're not sad.
You're just hormonal. It's just so intense. So how do you eat? How do you, like, what's your system as a solo mama?
So now I have like a wrap. So I'll put her in my wrap and I'll cook and eat. Sometimes I try to make more. I never really like leftovers. So now I just make more and I'll heat stuff up, stuff like that. But I think now it's gotten to the point where she'll play on the floor, like on her mat or something, or in like a little seat or something, and I can do other things. But initially it was just very difficult.
Totally.
I saw someone ask somewhere which part of pregnancy was the worst, like the very beginning when you have like your food aversions and morning sickness and stuff, the last trimester or postpartum. And someone's like, I would do the last trimester for 10 months over postpartum. And I'm like, yeah, it could be, it's like really difficult.
Yeah.
It's most difficult.
Yeah. I mean, it's not meant to be done so alone.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't mean
so my mom
your
was
specific.
There. Yeah.
I mean like all of us. Like it's meant.
Oh, like with a village and like
like it's meant to be
like
done physically. You know, that we're in a restorative state, and just, you know, who gets that? It's just it's a very hard bar, you know, to actualize in today's, you know, culture.
Yeah. And who really tends to the postpartum mother? You know what I mean? Like they want you there, even on the medical side, like they want you there every 4 weeks, even though, I don't know, there's no relationship there.
I cannot with the like, well, baby bullshit industry.
And even I didn't go back for my like 6-week checkup. And I've had people say, oh my gosh, you need to go do that. I'm like, why?
What's under that? What is the thing? What is the thing? I know. It's just people don't like to think for themselves. And so when women do think for themselves, it's this like alien concept, you know, like someone else, like a doctor hasn't told you it's okay to fill in the blank. I mean, it's so infantilizing.
Right. I even cringe, like, I know some women who like they went back and they had a pap smear at their 6th week. And I'm like, I don't want anything in there.
Oh yeah. Yeah. No, totally. I'm with you. Well, what a wild story. Thank you for sharing it.
Of course.
I'm proud of you. That's such a big journey, and cool, calm, and collected. Mama Zan.
That's so funny.
That's amazing. Awesome. Well, thank you so much
for having me.
And that's it for today, my sisters. Check out everything we do, including one-on-one and group coaching, learn about our private membership, in-person retreats, and more on freebirthsociety.com. Our online courses are on freebirthsocietycourses.com, including our flagship course, The Complete Guide to Free Birth. Don't miss the Radical Birthkeeper School if you're ready to become the authentic midwife that women are searching for. Together we rise, and the revolution starts inside each of us. I'll leave you with our Freebirth Society theme song, Wild Woman by Aruba Red.
I honor you for the wisdom you held, the ancient traditions of plant medicine and womb magic. I feel the spirit of the ancestors as I place my hands upon my belly. This sacred portal will be honored. Eons upon light beams of survival, withstanding the eradication of our power by design. I will not allow the separation of our young to be forced upon me. My sisters will no longer birth in captivity. The picket line redefined from burning our wild women to paralyzing us and drugging our babes. Strapped down in a clinical white bed, drying up the milk from our breasts. Keep your needles. My family will never again be doomed to chase those dragons or your poison. We reject your fear. We choose love. Everything with intention. Death, ascension. I will fly and bring her back from the stars. Conscious conception.